In the stillness of a serene morning in Merida, Yucatan, Dr. Natalie, a revered physician known for her unwavering dedication, was preparing for another day of service. The silence of her home echoed her solitude, a stark reminder that Grayson, her beloved husband and a distinguished lawyer, was away on one of his many business trips. Grayson's legal prowess had earned him invitations to numerous prestigious events and conferences nationwide, but his absence left Natalie with an aching void. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. This day seemed like it would be just another routine filled with patient consultations and medical care. However, beneath her composed exterior, Natalie couldn't shake off the loneliness that gnawed at her heart, a yearning for the comforting presence of her husband. As she immersed herself in her morning routine, the sudden shrill of the phone shattered the tranquility. On the other end was the on-call doctor from her clinic, urgently requesting her immediate attention for a critically ill little girl. Swiftly, Natalie grabbed her emergency bag, draped her coat over her shoulders, and dashed out of the house. Upon reaching the designated address, she was greeted by a frantic nanny who led her to the ailing child. Natalie quickly assessed the girl's condition and began administering necessary care. But as she worked, a shadowed figure emerged from the hallway, stopping her cold. It was Grayson. He looked exhausted, his eyes reflecting the toll of a sleepless night. Their eyes met, and his expression morphed from surprise to a blend of shock and despair. "Natalie, what? How are you here?" His voice trembled, betraying his inner turmoil. "I should be asking you that," Natalie responded, her voice steady yet laced with palpable tension. "You should be on a business trip, Grayson. What are you doing here?" Grayson took a hesitant step forward, a look of remorse clouding his features. "Natalie, I can explain," he began, but his words were cut short as the nurse administered medication to the fragile girl he had been holding. The child, now stabilized but still frail, was prepped for transport to the hospital. Natalie's heart pounded with a mix of professional duty and personal betrayal as she confronted Grayson. "Grayson, I need you to explain now. What is happening here? Who is this girl to you?" Her voice, though firm, quivered with the weight of impending heartbreak. As the ambulance attendant signaled that the vehicle was ready to transport the child, Natalie maintained her professionalism and accompanied the girl to the hospital. Behind her, Grayson pulled out his phone, the gravity of the situation bearing down on him. The air was thick with unanswered questions and unspoken truths, leaving a chasm of uncertainty between them. "We have a serious problem. My wife has discovered the girl's existence," Grayson spoke urgently, his voice laden with worry. "We understand the stakes here. If this information leaks, our reputations and positions in the city are at risk." The man on the other end of the line replied with equal concern, "This is unthinkable. If people find out, it will be disastrous. We are respected men, Grayson. The shock and scandal would be immense. Everything we have built, our careers could crumble in an instant." There was a tense pause before Grayson responded, "We need a plan to ensure this remains confidential. No one else can know about Aurora." "I'll devise something," the man said firmly, his voice steely with determination. "For now, keep your wife as far away from this matter as possible. We can't afford any more surprises." "Understood," Grayson agreed, ending the conversation with a promise to safeguard the secret. The truth about the girl threatened not only their personal lives but also their professional standing and reputations within the community. Aurora's existence was a secret they were determined to keep hidden, a revelation that could bring devastating consequences. As Natalie oversaw Aurora's treatment, she couldn't ignore the undeniable signs. The girl had a birthmark on the nape of her neck, identical to Grayson's. The resemblance was uncanny. Furthermore, during the examination, Natalie noticed that Aurora had the same allergic reaction to a common medication as Grayson. The weight of the realization hit her like a tidal wave. These weren't coincidences, they were intimate details too specific to ignore. She concluded that Aurora was Grayson's daughter. Just then, Natalie's phone rang. It was Grayson. He sighed heavily before speaking. Aurora is the daughter of someone I've been helping. I didn't tell you because... He hesitated, searching for the right words, because I knew you'd be upset that I hadn't told you sooner. I was trying to protect everyone, to keep things under control until I could resolve everything. I wanted to tell you, I swear, but things kept getting more complicated. I didn't want to burden you. Aurora's father is alone, and I've been supporting him. Protect yourself, Natalie retorted, her voice rising in intensity. Do you think you're protecting me by keeping me in the dark, Grayson? You chose to lie, chose to exclude me from this. How do you think that makes me feel? Her words were sharp, slicing through the tension with precision, making clear the deep wound Grayson's deceit had inflicted. Grayson replied, "It wasn't a lie, Natalie. It was an omission, and I deeply regret it. I thought I was doing what was best. I didn't want you to worry. Your workload is already so heavy, and I believed I could handle it alone." "You thought wrong," Grayson, Natalie responded, her voice lowered, heavy with hurt and disappointment. "What you're doing to me, it hurts." As night descended over Merida, Natalie braced herself for the confrontation she had both dreaded and needed. Dinner with Grayson was a silent affair, words exchanged sparingly, barely filling the space between them, let alone the widening chasm. Finally, Natalie found the courage to address the issue head-on. "We need to talk about Aurora," Natalie began, her voice steady, but her hands betraying her tension, fidgeting restlessly. Grayson looked at her, his eyes darkened with worry, knowing the moment of truth had arrived. "I know she is your daughter, Grayson. The birthmark, the allergy, it's too much to be a coincidence. Why can't you just admit it?" Natalie pleaded, her words heavy with suppressed pain. Grayson sighed deeply, the sound laden with anguish. "Natalie, I understand why you would think that, but you're wrong. Aurora is not my daughter. She is a child I promised to help, nothing more." His gaze was steady, trying to convey sincerity, but Natalie sensed an omission in his words. "How do you expect me to believe that after all the lies, the omissions? How can I trust you now?" Natalie's frustration overflowed, each memory of broken trust adding weight to her doubts. Grayson stepped closer, trying to bridge the emotional and physical distance between them. "I know I was wrong not to tell you about Aurora from the beginning, and for that I'm sorry. But I am telling you the truth now. Yes, I have a special affection for her for reasons that are hard to explain, but she is not my daughter. I would never lie about something like that." His voice was pleading, desperate for her to believe him. "The resemblances between the two of you, Grayson, are undeniable. This is not a coincidence. How can you not see that?" Her voice was a mix of desperation and accusation, seeking to unravel the mystery Grayson seemed so determined to guard. Grayson took a deep breath, his eyes earnest. "Natalie, I understand your doubts, but I swear on everything we have that Aurora is not my child. She is the daughter of a friend who passed away, someone who trusted me to care for her. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to add to your stress. I see now that it was a mistake, but please, believe me, there is nothing more to it." Natalie's eyes filled with tears, the turmoil of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "I want to believe you, Grayson, but you've kept so much from me. How can I be sure this isn't just another half-truth?" Grayson reached out, his touch tentative. "Because I love you, Natalie, and I know I've made mistakes, but I am telling you the whole truth now. Please, let me prove it to you." The weight of his words hung between them, a fragile bridge over the abyss of their fractured trust. Natalie closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, hoping that somehow they could find their way back to each other, one honest step at a time. Grayson seemed increasingly cornered, Natalie's relentless questions cutting deep into his conscience. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration and confusion. I see the resemblances, Natalie, of course I do, but that doesn't change the fact that she is not my daughter. His voice faltered, betraying the internal struggle with the truth he could barely contain. Then what are you hiding from me? Why help this girl in secret? Why lie about where you were all this time? It suggests there is something more, something you are not telling me. Natalie pressed on, each word heavy with the weight of her growing mistrust, seeking to break the barriers Grayson had built around himself. Grayson looked at Natalie, his eyes reflecting a whirlwind of emotions. I simply can't tell you, Natalie. Not yet. His admission, though vague, was an acknowledgement that there was indeed more to the story than he had revealed. It's complicated, more than you can imagine, and it's not just about me. It involves other people, risks I can't take right now. This revelation only served to heighten Natalie's frustration, her mind racing through possible scenarios, each more worrying than the last. How do you expect me to accept this, Grayson? How do you expect me to trust you when clearly there is something so big that you feel you need to hide from me? The betrayal she felt was now accompanied by a deep concern, not just for her marriage, but also for Grayson's well-being and the role Aurora played in this whole story. Grayson seemed divided, tormented by the choice between protecting a secret and preserving his relationship with Natalie. I ask you to trust me a little longer, he finally said, his voice a whisper of despair. There are things at stake bigger than we can understand now. I promise that when I can, I will tell you everything. Natalie was consumed by confusion and pain. Grayson's revelations and half-truths only deepened her disappointment. They had met in college and fallen in love at first sight. They had a love for each other that Natalie believed was unbreakable. Now, after 5 years of marriage, that bond seemed more fragile than ever. She had always dreamed of starting a family with Grayson, but he always asked to postpone. That night, the reasons for those postponements began to make bitter sense to Natalie. Why did you always ask to wait to have children? Natalie questioned, her voice choked with pain and the realization of years of delays. Now I see there was always another reason, wasn't there? Something you couldn't tell me. Grayson avoided her gaze, her words hitting him like blows. Natalie, I promise you it is not what you are thinking. I never. Aurora is not my daughter. I was just trying to help a child who needed me, he insisted, but his words sounded hollow even to him. Natalie shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. You can't keep doing this, Grayson. You can't keep shutting me out and expecting me to stand by you. This isn't just about Aurora, it's about everything you've hidden from me. How can we move forward if there's always a part of you that's a mystery to me? Grayson took a deep breath, his shoulders sagging under the weight of his secrets. I know I've made mistakes, and I know I've hurt you. But please, believe me when I say that I never meant to deceive you. I was trying to protect you, to protect us. I thought I could handle it all without burdening you. But I see now that I was wrong. Natalie wiped away her tears, her voice softening but still firm. Grayson, if we're going to make this work, you need to be honest with me, completely honest. No more secrets, no more lies. I need to know that I can trust you, that I can rely on you, no matter what. Grayson nodded, his eyes filled with regret and determination. I promise, Natalie, no more secrets. I'll tell you everything as soon as I can. But please, just give me a little more time to sort things out. I need you to trust me just a little longer. Natalie looked into his eyes, searching for the truth in his words. She wanted to believe him, to hold on to the love they had shared for so long. But the shadows of doubt and betrayal loomed large, and she knew that their future depended on Grayson's willingness to finally lay bare the secrets that had kept them apart. Natalie's frustration was palpable, each word from Grayson deepening her sense of betrayal. How can I believe you when all I see are secrets and lies? You asked me to wait, to delay our dream of having children, and now this. How can I trust anything you say? Grayson felt cornered, his own truth suffocating him. I couldn't explain before. I still can't, but it has nothing to do with not wanting our own children, Natalie. It's complicated. It's about protecting everyone involved. He tried desperately to make her understand without revealing too much. Protecting who, Grayson? Because from where I stand, it looks like the only thing you are protecting is your own secrets, Natalie retorted, the bitterness coloring her words. The silence that settled was a testament to the state of their relationship, full of unanswered questions, dreams postponed, and now a distrust that threatened to engulf the love that once united them. Natalie wondered how things had come to this point, how the man she loved and shared such a noble vocation with could have become a stranger burdened with mysteries. The next morning, after a restless night, Natalie made her decision with painful clarity. Sitting at the kitchen table, where they had shared many moments of happiness and plans for the future, she looked at Grayson with firm resolve in her eyes. "I want a divorce, Grayson," she said, her voice steady, but her eyes revealing the emotional storm behind the apparent calm. Grayson felt as if the ground had been ripped out from under him. The word divorce echoed in his mind, a devastating blow he never imagined hearing. For a moment he desperately considered revealing the whole truth about Aurora, hoping to save his marriage, but then images of the girl and the weight of the consequences that the truth could bring, not only to him but to her and other people, flooded his mind. "Please, Natalie, don't do this," he pleaded, his voice breaking. "I know I've made mistakes, but can't we find a way to work through this together?" Natalie shook her head, her expression resolute. "Grayson, I can't live in a marriage built on lies and half-truths. I've waited, I've trusted, but you continue to hide things from me. I deserve honesty, and you can't give me that." Grayson felt a wave of despair wash over him. "I love you, Natalie. Everything I've done because I thought it was the right thing, to protect you, to protect us. Please, give me a chance to make things right." Natalie sighed, her heart aching. "Love isn't enough, Grayson, not when there's no trust. I need to think about my own well-being, and right now that means walking away." Grayson watched helplessly as Natalie stood up, the finality of her decision sinking in. "I'm sorry, Grayson," she said softly, before walking away, leaving him alone with the crushing weight of his secrets and the shattered pieces of their life together. "Natalie, please think about this. We can't. I don't want us to end like this," he pleaded, his voice heavy with emotion, but his words seemed to fall on deaf ears. Natalie had built a wall around herself, a shield against more pain and disappointment. "I've thought about it, Grayson, and I see no other way." "Your refusal to trust me, that says it all," Natalie responded, each word like a nail in the coffin of their relationship. In the end, Natalie's decision to file for divorce remained unchanged. Grayson, devastated by her decision and by his own choices that led to this point, found himself trapped between the pain of losing Natalie and the fear of the consequences that the truth about Aurora could bring. Grayson realized the dilemma he was in. "Thinking of you, of us, was what gave me strength to continue, but now thinking of Aurora, I can't risk it. But how will I live without Natalie?" Grayson reflected, alone in the room, lost in his thoughts. He came to the conclusion that he could no longer live under the weight of these secrets. With trembling hands, he picked up the phone and made a call. When the man answered, Grayson said, "I can't live with this secret anymore," his voice laden with palpable desperation. "I've lost Natalie. I've lost everything. I can't keep carrying this burden." On the other end of the line, the man reacted with a mix of surprise and irritation. "Are you out of your mind?" he retorted, his harsh voice cutting through the air. "You know what's at stake here. You know how hard we've worked to keep this under control. You can't just decide you can't handle it anymore." The insistence on maintaining the secret was evident, but Grayson had reached his limit. "No, you don't understand. This secret, it's already cost me my marriage. It's already cost me my peace. I'm not the same man I was before, and I don't know if I can live with myself knowing I kept hiding the truth from the woman I love." Grayson's confession was a cry of despair, a plea for understanding in a sea of uncertainties. The man on the other end of the line paused, the gravity of Grayson's words sinking in. "Listen, Grayson, we can't let this out. There are too many people involved, too many lives that could be ruined. We have to think carefully about our next move." Grayson shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "I've already lost everything that mattered to me. The secrets, the lies, they've taken everything. I can't do this anymore." "Grayson, think about what you're saying," the man urged, his tone softening slightly. "We can find a way to manage this, but you have to stay strong, for everyone's sake." Grayson took a deep breath, the weight of his decision bearing down on him. "I can't promise to keep this secret forever. I need to find a way to make things right, somehow, but I can't do it alone." "We'll figure something out," the man said reluctantly. "But remember, Grayson, whatever happens next, we're all in this together." As Grayson hung up the phone, he felt a small measure of relief, but the burden of his choices still weighed heavily on his heart. He knew that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he also knew that he couldn't continue living a life shrouded in deceit. He needed to find a way to reclaim his integrity, even if it meant facing the consequences of his actions. The man on the other end of the line sighed. "Grayson, think about what you're doing. Think about the consequences. It's not just about you, it's about all of us. It's about the girl. Do you really want to expose all of this after all these years?" Grayson responded, "I just don't know anymore. But I know I can't keep going like this. We need to find another way, something that doesn't force me to live this lie." His declaration wasn't just about revealing the secret, it was a cry for help, a desire to find a solution that could bring some peace to his tormented heart. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, a silence that seemed to stretch for an eternity. "I'll think of something," the man finally said, his voice softer now, almost understanding. "But Grayson, you need to be prepared for the consequences. Once that door is opened, there's no closing it again." The conversation ended with those words, leaving Grayson alone with his thoughts, contemplating the uncertain future he now faced. Would he be able to handle the consequences of revealing the truth? And more importantly, would this decision bring him back to Natalie, or would it only be the beginning of more pain and suffering? Grayson's decision to confront the secret that had tormented him was a step towards redemption, but also a leap into the unknown. Aurora was a girl of singular beauty, her curly hair framing her face where large brown eyes shone with a mixture of curiosity and innocence. Despite her age, there was a seriousness in her gaze that suggested an early understanding of life's difficulties, perhaps a reflection of her own struggle with the health problems that had accompanied her since birth. From an early age, Aurora had faced a rare condition, a disease that affected her heart and required constant medical care. Her comings and goings to the hospital were frequent, almost becoming routine, but she faced each visit, each procedure with a bravery that surprised everyone around her. Grayson had become a constant presence in these moments, a safe harbor in the whirlwind of doctors, nurses, and treatments. "Aurora, how are you feeling today?" Grayson asked during one of his visits, trying to infuse lightness into his voice despite the weight in his heart. Aurora smiled, a smile that lit up the room. "I'm fine, Grayson. The doctor said I'm as strong as a superhero," she replied with a glint of pride in her eyes, even though her small body showed signs of fatigue. The relationship between Aurora and Grayson was marked by mutual tenderness and care. He read her stories of adventures and courage, stories that spoke of overcoming and hope, while she, with her fertile imagination, transported herself to worlds where the disease could not reach her. "One day, I will be the heroine of my own story," she would say, the determination in her voice defying the fragility of her condition. But behind Aurora's strength and resilience, There were moments of vulnerability when the reality of her condition became too difficult to ignore. "I just wish I could be like other kids. I wish I could run and play without getting tired," she confessed in a whisper, in moments when the disease showed its cruel face. Grayson, faced with these confessions, felt a mix of pain and admiration for the girl's strength, reinforcing his determination to protect her at all costs. Despite the challenges, Aurora had a contagious joy of living, a light that shone even on the darkest days. Grayson, facing the difficulties of unrevealed secrets and the consequences of his past choices, loved Natalie and didn't know how to live without her. Amid the emotional chaos that dominated his life, Grayson found himself at a crossroads, confronted by the weight of secrets kept under lock and key in his unwavering love for Natalie, a love that now seemed to be crumbling before his eyes. The void left by Natalie's departure was immense, an abyss that widened every day. Every moment he realized her absence. In Aurora, he saw a ray of hope, a light that brightened the dark days, a child who, despite all the challenges, maintained a contagious joy of living. But this light was also a constant reminder of the decisions he had made and the consequences he now faced. The next day, Grayson was having lunch at a restaurant when he received a call. "Grayson, I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday," the man began, his voice filled with urgency. "The situation as it stands can't continue. We need to act, and I believe I found a solution. We'll move up Aurora's trip to the United States. Originally, we planned to send her next year, but given the circumstances, I believe it's best to speed things up." The man explained, each word heavy with the importance of the decision. "This will give us some breathing room and hopefully resolve things with your wife." Grayson felt a mix of relief and worry about the proposal. "But how are we going to do this? We need to be extremely discreet. We can't risk raising suspicion or exposing Aurora to danger," he responded, the concern evident in his voice. The idea of sending Aurora away was painful, but he knew that at the moment, it might be the best option to protect her. "I've already thought about that," the man assured. "Everything will be done with the utmost discretion. We'll use trusted contacts and ensure Aurora is safe and well cared for. This time in the United States will be good for her, a chance to start in a new environment, away from all this drama." The confidence in his voice was comforting, but not entirely able to dispel the cloud of doubt and fear hanging over Grayson. "I understand. And Natalie, how do I explain this to her?" Grayson asked, the last sentence almost a whisper. The idea of discussing such a plan with Natalie brought a pain he didn't know if he was ready to face. "Don't worry about that now. Let's take it one step at a time. The most important thing is to ensure Aurora's safety. As for Natalie, when the time comes, we'll find the best way to explain everything," the man replied, trying to offer some comfort. Hanging up the phone, Grayson sat there, staring into the void of the place that once symbolized so much joy. The decision to send Aurora to the United States, though logical, weighed on his heart like lead. He knew it was a necessary step, but each decision that distanced Aurora from him was also deeply painful. While immersed in his thoughts, Natalie entered the restaurant and saw Grayson isolated in a corner. Observing him from a distance, Natalie noticed the tension in his shoulders. He seemed consumed by his thoughts, so absorbed that he didn't notice her presence. Seeing him so vulnerable, so full of worries, rekindled in Natalie a spark of concern she thought had been extinguished with the end of their marriage. Moved by an impulse she didn't fully understand, Natalie decided to seek answers from the only person who might have some idea of what was going on, Mr. Lincoln, Grayson's father, and a man of unwavering principles. Lincoln was a pastor, and as a religious leader, he was known in his community as a pillar of virtue and moral guide. Grayson's family was deeply rooted in traditions and values, a stark contrast to the secrets and lies that now seemed to surround his son's life. When she found Lincoln, Natalie was visibly shaken, the worry clear in her voice and eyes. "Mr. "Lincoln, I need to talk to you about Grayson," she began, hesitant. "I saw him today, and he seemed very nervous. I'm worried. He's taking care of a girl in secret, and I feel he might be being threatened by something or someone." Her words came out in a rush, marked by an anxiety she struggled to control. Lincoln listened with a grave expression, the weight of Natalie's words sinking deep. He knew his son well and knew that Grayson was a man with a good heart who would do anything to help someone in need. However, the idea that he might be involved in something dangerous or that he was being threatened was something Lincoln couldn't ignore. "Natalie, I appreciate you coming to me. I'm as surprised as you are. Grayson never mentioned anything about a girl. But are you sure about this? How do you know?" Lincoln asked, trying to process the information. "I saw the girl, mister." Lincoln and Grayson confirmed he was taking care of her, but he never explained why. "And now, seeing him like this, so distressed, I can't help but worry," Natalie explained, the fear and concern for Grayson, despite everything, still very present. "I fear what all this might mean. What could happen to him if he is indeed in danger?" Lincoln nodded, a gesture of understanding. "Natalie, I promise I will talk to Grayson. We need to understand what's happening and ensure he's safe. If there is something threatening my son, or if he's in a situation he can't control, then we need to help him, no matter what." The determination in his voice was unwavering, a reflection of his faith and unconditional love for his son. Natalie listened to Lincoln's words, knowing he was a man of faith, someone who believed in the power of prayer and in people's ability to overcome their adversities. "I will try to stay calm, Mr. Lincoln, but it's difficult knowing Grayson might be facing something serious," she admitted, the internal struggle evident in her expression. "I know, Natalie, and your concern is a sign of your care for him. But remember, Grayson has a family that loves him, friends, and a community that supports him. Together we are strong, and together we can help him overcome any challenge he's facing." Lincoln replied, his voice carrying a weight of conviction. "And most importantly, we have faith. Faith gives us strength in moments of uncertainty. I promise you, we will get to the bottom of this. I will talk to Grayson, understand what's happening, and take the necessary steps." Lincoln assured, the determination in his voice projecting a confidence that Natalie desperately needed to feel. "But for now, it's important that we stay calm and not let anxiety get the best of us. Excessive worry can blind us to solutions." Natalie left the meeting with Lincoln feeling a bit more hopeful, despite her persistent worry. In the midst of this web of concerns and secret plans, Grayson received a message that made his heart race. The time had come. The message was clear and direct, leaving little room for doubt or hesitation. "Everything is ready for Aurora's departure to the United States. Take her to the airport tonight." There was no signature, but it didn't need one. Grayson knew exactly who it was from and the weight those words carried. Grayson's mind was in a whirlwind. On one hand, he was relieved to know that the preparations to protect Aurora were complete, that she would be on her way to a new beginning, far from the shadows surrounding them. On the other hand, the reality of parting with the girl who had somehow become part of his family weighed heavily on his heart. He looked at Aurora, playing quietly on the living room floor, unaware of the complexities and dangers of the adult world. How could he explain that soon she would be embarking on a journey to an unknown place, far from him, far from everything she knew? With a deep sigh, Grayson approached Aurora, squatting down to her eye level. "Aurora, dear, I need to tell you about a great adventure you're going to start," he began, trying to keep his voice steady and optimistic. Curiosity lit up the girl's eyes, and she stopped playing, attentive to Grayson's words. "You're going on a very special trip to a place where you'll see new things and make new friends," he continued, each word carefully chosen to paint the imminent departure as a positive adventure. As Grayson explained, he couldn't help but notice the mix of excitement and nervousness in Aurora's eyes. She was brave, no doubt, but the idea of a big change was frightening even to the bravest. "But are you coming with me?" Aurora's voice trembled slightly with the question. Grayson felt a tightness in his heart. "Dear, I would love to go with you, but you'll have a very special person waiting for you on the other side. I'll be here, cheering for you, and waiting to hear about all your new adventures," he replied, the promise in his words tinged with silent pain. The time that followed was a blur of preparations. Grayson packed Aurora's things, each item a reminder of the life they had shared, however brief it had been. He wanted to make sure she had everything she needed, but what he really wanted to give her security, stability, and the constant presence of someone who loved her seemed beyond his reach at that moment. Meanwhile, Natalie, driven by a mix of concern and determination, decided to go to Aurora's house in search of answers. Upon arrival, her heart raced when she saw Grayson and the girl, Aurora, with suitcases being carefully placed in the car. There was a palpable tension in the air, an urgency in Grayson's movements that Natalie had never seen before. It was clear they were leaving, but where and why? The questions piled up, increasingly urgent, increasingly distressing. At that moment, Natalie made an impulsive decision, which seemed the only viable option. She decided to follow them. The journey seemed endless, but finally the car stopped. They had arrived at an airport. Natalie parked at a distance that allowed her to observe without being seen. Grayson and Aurora sat on a bench, and he gave her a hug and a kiss on the forehead. He knew that what he was doing was for her good, but doubt and uncertainty tormented him. Was he making the right choice? Would Aurora really be safe and happy in her new life? Grayson, hugging Aurora, whispered words of encouragement. "I love you. You will be amazing, Aurora, and remember, I'm always with you here," he said, placing her hand over her heart. Aurora hugged him back tightly before turning to embark on the greatest adventure of her life. Suddenly, the scene was interrupted by the appearance of a man who approached them. Before Grayson could react, Aurora let go of his hand and ran towards the newcomer with an enthusiasm reserved for someone of intimate and profound importance. "Daddy," she cried, her voice filled with relief and love as she threw herself into the man's arms. The embrace they shared was one of those rare and pure moments, full of emotions. The man had his back turned, and Natalie couldn't see who it was. The man responded, "Hello, my daughter," and knelt down to hug Aurora, addressing her with a tenderness that overflowed in his words. He kissed her on the forehead, a gesture so laden with affection and protection that for a moment, Natalie felt like an intruder witnessing such a private and significant moment. The revelation that Aurora had a father, and that it wasn't her husband, brought Natalie a sense of relief. Then, holding the man's hands firmly, Aurora looked up with eyes shining with fear and uncertainty. "I'm scared to leave. I don't want to be away from you," she confessed, her trembling voice revealing the vulnerability of her young heart. "Besides, there's no one to take care of me there. I don't know anyone. Please, I want to stay here." Her words were a plea, a supplication to remain in the only world she knew, beside the people she loved. The man knelt to her eye level, holding her hands with a gentleness that contrasted with the complicated situation they found themselves in. "My dear, I know this is hard, and I would give anything to change the circumstances that brought us here," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of pain and resolve. "But I promise you, this is for your own good. We will always be connected, no matter the distance, and you will meet incredible people who will take care of you with all the love you deserve." Natalie, observing the scene, wondered who this man was who clearly loved Aurora so much, but was sending her away. And how did Grayson fit into all this? The numerous unanswered questions wove a new web of mysteries in her mind. The undeniable physical resemblances between Grayson and Aurora, the identical birthmark, the shared allergy, how could these very specific and intimate details be mere coincidences? As she watched the man from behind, a disturbing sense of familiarity began to infiltrate her thoughts. There was something about him, perhaps in the way he moved or the posture he maintained, that evoked a distant memory, an echo of recognition she couldn't immediately place. Natalie strained to get a better view, moving discreetly to obtain a different angle, but the man remained with his back turned, an enigma she couldn't unravel. Who was this man? And more importantly, what was his connection to Grayson and Aurora? The mystery was a labyrinth of secrets she was determined to uncover. When the unknown man finally turned around, revealing a face Natalie never expected to find in this situation, the shock hit her like lightning. "It can't be," she whispered to herself in disbelief, her legs trembling and the discovery shaking her world, leaving her on the edge of an abyss of confusion and despair. "This doesn't make sense." She continued, a desperate attempt to deny the reality before her. Natalie's eyes widened as the impact of this discovery left her horrified, forcing her to question everything she thought she knew about the people in her life. The man whom Aurora called Daddy was Mr. Lincoln, Grayson's father. Her father-in-law was not the man of integrity he appeared to be. He had a daughter outside of his marriage and was hiding it from everyone, with Grayson's help. The image of Lincoln, always so upright, a pillar of virtue and morality in his community and family life, crumbled before Natalie's eyes, leaving her in a state of profound shock. "It can't be Mr. Lincoln," Natalie murmured to herself, her mind struggling to accept what her eyes saw. How could a man who preached integrity and honesty and was respected by everyone around him have kept a daughter from an extramarital affair hidden? Natalie remembered the countless times Mr. Lincoln had spoken about the importance of fidelity in marriage. Now those words seemed to echo in her mind with a cruel irony. How could he? Natalie asked in an anguished whisper. When Mr. Lincoln finally turned around, his eyes met Natalie's, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. The recognition was immediate, but what followed was a wave of palpable tension. "You knew," Natalie began, her voice trembling but impregnated with firm accusation. "I was at your house, worried, seeking answers, and you lied to me." The accusation was direct, and Natalie's words cut through the air with a precision that left little room for misunderstanding. Lincoln, on his part, seemed momentarily stunned, surprise and denial dancing in his eyes as he tried to process Natalie's words. "What are you saying, Natalie?" I don't know what you're talking about," Lincoln replied, his voice faltering slightly under the weight of the accusation. His attempt to deny knowledge of the situation only served to heighten the tension between them. "Aurora is your daughter," Natalie then said, the revelation coming out as a breath heavy with implications and judgment. Lincoln's reaction was one of pure dismay, a flicker of discomfort crossing his face as he struggled to maintain his composure. Aurora, until then a silent observer, looked from one adult to another, trying to understand the words and tensions surrounding her. Her expression reflected an innocent confusion, a child trying to make sense of a situation beyond her comprehension. "Daddy, what's happening? How do you know the doctor who took care of me in the hospital?" Aurora asked, her innocent question bringing a new wave of urgency to the situation. Lincoln, faced with Aurora's innocent question, felt the weight of the moment pressing down on his shoulders. He shifted his gaze from the girl to Natalie, seeking in her face some sign of how to proceed. He saw a mix of pain, accusation, and a search for truth that left him momentarily speechless. "Daddy, why is Dr. Natalie here, and why is she angry?" Aurora insisted, her small voice bringing a new wave of urgency to the situation. Lincoln took a deep breath, his heart pounding. "Aurora, sweetie, Dr. Natalie is a friend," he said, his voice shaky. "She's here to help us." Natalie stepped forward, her gaze never leaving Lincoln's. "Help us," she echoed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Is that what you call this? Helping?" Lincoln looked at her, his eyes pleading. "Natalie, please. There's more to this than you know. I never wanted any of this to come out like this." Then why didn't you tell me? Natalie shot back. Why did you and Grayson keep this from me? Do you have any idea what this has done to us? Lincoln sighed, his shoulders slumping. I thought I was protecting my family. I never wanted to hurt anyone, least of all you. Protecting your family, Natalie repeated, incredulous. By lying to them? By hiding a child? Aurora's eyes widened, her confusion deepening. Daddy, what's going on? Why are you and Natalie fighting? Lincoln knelt down to Aurora's level, his heart breaking at the sight of her innocent confusion. Aurora, sweetie, sometimes adults make mistakes, big mistakes, and we have to figure out how to make things right. Natalie watched them, her heart aching. She saw the pain in Lincoln's eyes, the love he had for Aurora, and felt a pang of sympathy. But the betrayal she felt was still too raw, too overwhelming to ignore. I need to know the truth, Lincoln, Natalie said quietly. All of it. No more lies, no more secrets. Lincoln nodded, standing up and looking at her with a weary resolve. You deserve that much, he said, but it's a long story, and it's not easy to hear. Natalie crossed her arms, her expression steely. I'm not going anywhere, she said. Start talking. Lincoln took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. Aurora's mother was a woman I met a long time ago. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. When she got pregnant, she didn't want anything to do with me or the baby. But I couldn't abandon them. I promised to take care of Aurora, to make sure she was safe. And Grayson knew about this, Natalie asked, her voice trembling. Lincoln nodded. He found out a few years ago. He offered to help, to keep the secret. He didn't want to burden you with it. He thought he was doing the right thing. The right thing, Natalie scoffed. Lying to me, keeping me in the dark? That's not the right thing, Lincoln. That's betrayal. I know, Lincoln said, his voice heavy with regret. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Natalie took a deep breath, trying to process everything. I don't know if I can forgive you, she said finally. But for Aurora's sake, I need to try and understand. Lincoln nodded, tears in his eyes. Thank you, Natalie. That means more than you know. As they stood there, the weight of the truth hanging between them, Natalie realized that their lives would never be the same. But maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to move forward, to heal the wounds that had been inflicted. Oh, for Aurora's sake and for their own. Lincoln, realizing he could no longer avoid the truth, took a deep breath, searching for the strength and the right words to explain a reality he knew would change everything. Aurora, my dear, there are many things we need to talk about, Lincoln began, his voice trembling. About Dr. Natalie, she is a very special person. What you need to know now is that everyone here loves you very much, and we are trying to do what is best for you. You will board the flight, and everything will be fine. He paused, struggling against the emotion threatening to break his voice. Board the flight to where, Lincoln? You were sending your own daughter away. She is just a child. Natalie's words overflowed with a mix of shock and accusation, echoing through the space between them with an intensity that made Aurora look from one adult to another, trying to grasp the meaning behind the palpable tension. Please, keep your voice down, Lincoln responded quickly, a flicker of panic crossing his face. No one can know she is my daughter. It's complicated, Natalie, he continued, his voice now a whisper, urgent, trying to contain the scandal that a loud revelation could cause. This is absurd, Lincoln. How can you think it's right to hide the truth this way, and sending Aurora away as if she could simply disappear without causing pain or questions? Natalie couldn't believe the logic Lincoln was trying to impose on the situation, her mind rejecting the idea that the solution to the secret was to send Aurora away, a girl who clearly needed the love and support of her family. Enough. Let's put an end to this, shouted Grayson, the emotion weighing on every word as he began to reveal the burden he had been carrying in silence. "I have taken care of Aurora in secret all these years," he said, looking directly at Lincoln, his voice trembling but determined, "and I can't take it anymore. I don't want her to go to the United States. She's just a child and wants to stay with us." Aurora, holding Grayson's hand, looked at him with big, hopeful eyes, her expression mirroring the vulnerability and desire to stay with those she considered her family. "I don't want to leave either, Grayson. I want to stay with you," she said, her small but firm voice conveying the sincerity of her feelings. Grayson continued, "We can't just send her away as if she can be erased from our lives. She means everything to me. Hiding her existence, hiding our love and care for her, it's destroying us. We need to find another way." His declaration was a plea. Lincoln, confronted with the pain and passion in his son's words, seemed to waver, the mask of certainty and control beginning to crack. For a moment, the weight of the consequences of his decisions seemed to genuinely hit him, the internal conflict evident in his gaze. Lincoln finally spoke, his voice heavy with regret. "You're right, Grayson. This secrecy, this hiding, it's not sustainable. Aurora deserves better than this, and so do we. But the repercussions, the scandal, it could ruin us all." Natalie stepped forward, her voice now soft but resolute. "We can face this together, Lincoln. The truth needs to come out, no matter the consequences. Aurora needs to know she is loved and that she belongs here, with her family." Lincoln looked at Natalie, then at Grayson and Aurora, seeing the unity and determination in their eyes. The burden of his secrets, the years of living a lie, seemed to weigh heavily on him. I don't know how to begin," he admitted, his voice breaking. "Start with the truth," Natalie said gently. "Tell everyone the truth. We'll support you, but it has to come from you." Lincoln nodded slowly, the enormity of the task before him sinking in. "I will," he promised, looking at Aurora with a mix of sorrow and love. "I'm so sorry for everything, Aurora. I should have been honest from the start." Aurora, still holding Grayson's hand, nodded. "It's okay, Daddy. Just don't send me away." Lincoln hugged her, tears streaming down his face. "I won't. I promise." As they stood there, a family brought together by the truth, the path ahead seemed daunting but filled with a newfound hope. Together, they would face the consequences of their actions and rebuild the trust that had been broken, one step at a time. For Aurora's sake, and for their own, they would find a way to move forward, united by love and the commitment to live honestly, no matter the cost. "I just wanted to protect our family, Grayson, but maybe I was wrong about what that really means," Lincoln admitted, his voice low, a tacit acknowledgement of the pain his actions had caused. It was a painful admission, a crack in the facade of a man who had always prided himself on his strength and wisdom. Grayson, seizing the moment of vulnerability in his father, insisted, "We need to do what is right. Right for Aurora, not what is easy or what will protect our image. She deserves to grow up surrounded by love, not secrets. Let's find a solution together, as a family." Grayson took Aurora's hand, and together they left the airport, leaving behind the weight of unspoken secrets and difficult decisions. Grayson's decision to no longer hide his sister, to bring Aurora openly into his life, was a courageous step toward an uncertain but hopeful future. He knew that the road ahead would be full of challenges, but the conviction that he was doing the right thing gave him strength. Natalie, observing the interaction between Grayson and Aurora, felt a wave of emotion wash over her. Grayson's determination to protect and care for Aurora, to face the consequences of bringing the truth to light, touched her deeply. "I will help," Natalie said, her voice carrying a mix of determination and affection. "I will come back home, Grayson. We will take care of Aurora's health together." Her offer was a gesture of reconciliation, a promise of support, and a new beginning for them as a family. Aurora, holding Grayson's hand on one side and looking at Natalie with bright eyes of gratitude on the other, simply said, "Thank you." There was a simplicity in her gratitude, but the depth of emotion behind those words was profound. She was beginning to understand that she was surrounded by people who truly cared for her, who were willing to face adversities to ensure her well-being. When they arrived home, Grayson felt a sense of relief and renewal. "From now on, I won't hide my little sister anymore," Grayson stated, looking at Natalie and Aurora. "We will face whatever comes together as a family." Natalie, moved by Grayson's honesty and vulnerability, felt inspired by his strength. She knew that the road ahead would be difficult, that there would be obstacles and perhaps even external judgments. However, the promise of building a life together, of caring for Aurora as their own family, filled her with renewed hope. "We're in this together," she said, placing her hand on Grayson's, a gesture of unity and commitment. And so, at that moment, a new family began to form, a family not defined only by blood ties, but by the shared commitment of care, love, and protection. As they settled into their new reality, the days were filled with both challenges and heartwarming moments. Aurora's health improved under the attentive care of both Natalie and Grayson. The community eventually learned about Aurora, but instead of judgment, they were met with unexpected support. People admired their courage to stand by the truth and the strength it took to bring their family together. Lincoln, too, began to change. The weight of his secrets lifted. He started to reconnect with his family in ways he hadn't before. He worked to rebuild trust with Natalie and Grayson, taking steps to be the man of integrity he had always claimed to be. His relationship with Aurora blossomed, and he became an involved grandfather figure, finally embracing his role openly and with pride. Natalie and Grayson found their relationship stronger than ever. The trials they faced together had forged a bond that was deeper and more resilient. They made new plans for the future, ones that included Aurora in every aspect. They knew that life would continue to throw challenges their way, but they were ready to face them head-on, united and stronger as a family. And so, the promise of a new beginning was fulfilled, built on the foundation of truth, love, and unwavering commitment. Their home, once filled with the shadows of secrets, now radiated with the warmth of honesty and the joy of shared lives. Together, they navigated the complexities of life, always with the assurance that they had each other, no matter what. Aurora, at the center of this circle of love, represented the promise of new beginnings and the certainty that no matter the adversities, they would find a way to overcome them together. As Grayson, Natalie, and Aurora adjusted to a new life full of hope and fresh promises, Lincoln faced the harsh consequences of his past actions. His revelation as an adulterer and father of a child out of wedlock shook the community that had always respected him, plunging him into the center of a scandal that challenged the integrity he had always preached. The situation was exacerbated by the fact that Aurora had health problems and Lincoln's intention to send her away, which deepened the disappointment of the community, friends, and family. This revelation not only strained family relationships, but also placed Grayson in a difficult position, forcing him to choose between loyalty to his father and honesty with his wife, almost costing him his marriage. Lincoln found himself haunted by remorse, realizing the unfair burden he had placed on his son and questioning the values he wished to impart. He began to understand that true redemption would require a deep change, not just facing the judgment of others, but also accepting and unconditionally loving Aurora, as well as repairing the damage caused to the most important relationships in his life. Moreover, his wife was extremely disappointed with Lincoln's betrayal. It was then that he decided to come clean in front of the congregation. Lincoln stepped forward, facing everyone's gazes. He took the microphone and addressed his wife with a sincerity she had not seen in years. "My dear, I have wronged you tremendously. I got involved with a sex worker. She left as soon as she had the child. I hid the truth out of fear of losing your respect and love and the community's respect. but it has cost much more than I could have imagined. I apologize from the bottom of my heart." Then he spoke to the church members. "I have failed all of you. I have failed to live by the values I preached so much. Please accept my sincere apologies. I am committed to repairing the damage I have caused." For Grayson, the encounter was particularly charged. "Son, I placed on you a burden no father should impose. My actions almost destroyed your family, and for that, I don't know if I can ever make amends, but I am here asking for your understanding and forgiveness." Lincoln expressed, the pain in his eyes reflecting the sincerity of his words. Turning to Natalie, Lincoln acknowledged the impact of his choices. "Natalie, you have shown incredible strength and compassion. I lied to you, and yet you stood firm by Grayson and Aurora. I owe you a gratitude that words cannot express, and I humbly ask for your forgiveness," he said, gratitude mixed with remorse in his voice. The congregation was silent, the weight of Lincoln's confession hanging in the air. His wife, tears streaming down her face, stood up. "Lincoln," she began, her voice breaking, "I never imagined you could do something like this. But I also see the man you are trying to become, the man who is finally owning up to his mistakes. It's going to take time, but I believe in redemption and forgiveness. For our sake, for our family's sake, I am willing to try." The church members, moved by the raw honesty and vulnerability, slowly began to nod, some murmuring words of forgiveness and support. Lincoln's journey to redemption would be long and arduous, but this public acknowledgement was the first step in healing the deep wounds his actions had caused. Grayson, stepping forward, placed a hand on his father's shoulder. "Dad, it will take time to rebuild the trust, but this is a start. We need to focus on being the family Aurora deserves. We can find a way through this together." Natalie, moved by the sincerity and unity displayed, nodded. "Let's take it one day at a time. Aurora needs us, and we need each other. Healing won't be easy, but it's possible." Aurora, sensing the gravity of the moment, but not fully understanding all its implications, looked up at the adults around her. "Does this mean we can stay together?" she asked, her voice filled with hope. Grayson knelt down to her level, his eyes brimming with tears. "Yes, Aurora. We will stay together. We are a family, and we will get through this together." The road ahead was uncertain and undoubtedly fraught with challenges, but with a newfound commitment to honesty, love, and support, they faced it as a united family. And in the center of it all, Aurora, the catalyst for their transformation, became the symbol of their resilience and the hope for a better future. Finally, kneeling before Aurora, Lincoln looked at his daughter with a new resolve. "Aurora, my dear daughter, I have failed you in ways that will take time to understand, but I want you to know that from now on, I will be present in your life, not as a shadow, but as your father who loves you unconditionally," Lincoln promised, his voice choked with emotion. "I will no longer hide you. You are part of who I am, and it's time everyone knows the wonderful daughter I have." Aurora looked at her father with gratitude and hugged him. She felt protected and embraced by him. After what happened, Lincoln's life was not the same. Despite his wife's forgiveness, Lincoln could no longer continue as a pastor and now works in the commercial sector. His story is proof that wrong decisions can lead to major upheavals in our lives. However, when we make the right choices, speak the truth, and reconcile with those we have hurt, we can start a new chapter in our lives. If you like this story, please like and subscribe to the channel. This helps me continue sharing amazing stories every day. Don't miss the next surprising story that now appears on your screen. Thank you very much for your support. See you soon. In this story, a doctor received a call to attend to a 5-year-old girl, which led to a profound revelation and a journey of truth and reconciliation for an entire family. Through the trials faced by Lincoln, Grayson, Natalie, and little Aurora, We've witnessed the power of honesty, the importance of confronting our past, and the incredible strength that comes from family unity and unconditional love. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What have you learned from this story? Please share one thing you've learned and how you plan to bring it into practice in your own life in the comments below. Your insights and reflections are invaluable, and they help us all grow together. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support helps us continue sharing amazing stories every day. Thank you very much for your support, and see you soon.